Okay, I'm going to start now. It's noon, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Uncompahgre Valley, I welcome everyone to today's program about election process, election security, and precinct changes. My name is Carol Howe. I'm the Vice President of our local league that serves Delta, Montrose, and Ouray counties. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in our government. Our mission is empowering voters, protecting democracy, which is accomplished through both education and advocacy. We work to empower voters by providing unbiased information about voting and election processes so that voters can exercise their right to vote in an informed way. That is the goal of today's program. We are extremely fortunate today to have a panel, three people who are charged with overseeing the elections in our three counties. Okay. Terry Stevenson is the county clerk and recorder for Delta County. Terry has served in her position for 7 years. Tressa Gines is the county clerk and recorder for Montrose County. And Tressa has also served in her position for 7 years. And we have Michelle Nauer, the county clerk and recorder from Ouray County. And Michelle has served in her position for 28 years. These three ladies have put together a very informative program for you this afternoon. Ms. Gines will start by discussing the election process and election security measures that are in place in Colorado. Ms. Nauer will then talk about voter responsibility and voter registration information. And then Ms. Stevenson will address the redistricting and precinct changes that must be made as a result of that redistricting. Each speaker will have approximately 12 minutes for their portion. Then we will have time for questions near the end of the program. You'll be able to submit your questions via chat. The chat will be disabled until the question and answer period, so we don't have distractions on the screen while our speakers are talking. We are recording this meeting, and it will be available for later viewing on our league website, and we will share it with the counties as well. Please mute yourself so our speakers are not interrupted. I recommend that you view the presentation in speaker view, which you can select if you hover over the upper right on your screen and click on the view and select speaker view. That way the person speaking will be most prominent on the screen. And I recommend you turn off your video when you are not speaking. So without further ado, let's begin with Montrose County Clerk and Recorder, Tressa Gines.
Hello, I am Tressa Gines, and I am here to talk about the mail ballot system. Colorado is a mail ballot system. We have had it in place since 2013. It's a mail ballot is sent to all registered active eligible electors who have presented their acceptable form of ID. In Colorado, typically that is the driver's license. The mail ballot is it's convenient to everyone. It's convenient for the voters specifically because it provides time for them to educate themselves. We also provide sample ballots. This is one of them for the city municipal election that's coming up, to where the elector can come in and get a sample ballot, investigate the candidates or the measures that are on the ballots, and educate themselves in that process. That's what this is all about, is educating yourself in the process. Colorado has a number of fundamental, just key components that make our process transparent and full of integrity. And I would say number one is legislative action. There's laws in place that have set every process in it. It's statute driven in full from beginning to end. We have oversight and accountability. Our oversight is through the Secretary of State's office. They provide legal direction and accountability. We also have accountability through the major political parties, watchers, observers, the media, the citizens, our co-workers, and our election judges. We have ballot tracks implemented in the last several years, and that is an automatic system to where the voter gets notified, whether it be through an email, whether it be a text message or a voicemail, that their ballot was sent to them, that their ballot was received by us, or that their ballot was accepted through signature verification. We have 24/7 video surveillance. The entire election process is under 24/7 video surveillance. It's recorded, it's maintained, and then we protect those hard drives in our vault for at least 25 months after each election. All of our election officials and all of our judges, we undergo criminal background investigations. Oaths are administered. We have extensive training, and we all have a solid understanding of the process and the system. We use bipartisan teams of judges to do everything. So that means a Republican and a Democrat is used together at the same time to work throughout the process together in teams. And there's key roles that these judges conduct. We have a lot of audits and tests they conduct. They conduct signature verification, any duplicating ballots. So when we get a ballot that has food on it, or it's torn and it's not readable by the machines, that's what those judges do, is they duplicate those ballots. The judges adjudicate, which determine voter intent. And then, like I said, the audits and the test before and after the election, as well as the canvass board. I want to talk a little bit more in depth about the statewide voter registration database. Colorado has had ours implemented since 2006, and election officials maintain and update that database throughout the year. And the sources, our daily sources, are the individuals that contact our office for voter registration and updates, govotecolorado.gov notifications, and then our monthly updates are a number of state and federal agencies that provide information to us. Of these is the Department of Public Health and Environment for deceased voters, the USPS for national change of address for voters who have moved, the Department of Revenue for driver's license updates, the Department of Corrections for the voters who are incarcerated and have lost their voting rights, online voter registrations, Electronic Information Center, which you've heard it called ERIC, which is a number of states, at least over 30, that they submit voter registration and vehicle license data to find duplicates and those who have moved and passed away. We also vet out the citizens in the process, and the Secretary of State compares our citizens list to the NLP, which is the non-lawfully present, as well as the temporary lawfully present database of the driver's license for that. Now, there's some confusion sometimes that we get questions about of the number of voters being accurate in comparison to other data, like the census data or the data of people who reside in the county. And a law passed back in 2019 that's called automatic voter registration, and that's anyone applying for a driver's license, including 16-year-olds and older, are registered to vote automatically. They're registered to vote. Now, that doesn't mean that they're eligible to vote. So we use numbers that are active eligible voters, but yet they are registered. So that's where some of the confusion lies, with numbers that may not match in various databases that we hear some talk about. Also, I get questions about voter activity that's tracked. We do not track how people vote. We only track who voted and how they submitted their ballot, what their method of voting was. Did they vote in person? Did they vote by mail ballot? Did they mail it to us, or did they drop it in a drop box? Colorado has solid, proven processes throughout our entire, from beginning to end. We're transparent in everything we do. In-person voting, you've heard talk about the people voting on the machines. These machines, they're not connected to the internet. There's no wireless, there's no network whatsoever, there's no Bluetooth. They're not connected at all. The voter submits an ID. When the voter comes in person to vote on the machine, they submit an ID, they sign a signature card, and then they proceed to vote on the machine. They vote, they print out their ballot, they review their ballot, and then it's a paper ballot. So we have a paper trail for everything, even when they vote on the machine. And we keep all paper throughout the entire election for those 25 months that I was talking about. The ballots that are collected and received, we immediately start that process. The first one in received is the only one that counts. All others, if someone were to even try to vote more than one ballot, any other ballot, the first one received is the one that is accepted, and anything else is rejected, and we send those to the district attorney's office. Ballots that are undeliverable, we get questions about that. The Postal Service does not forward ballots. When someone's changed their address and we've already sent their ballot to them, or our vendors already sent their ballot, and it comes back to us undeliverable, we get that little yellow sticker on the envelope that says mail mail address has changed. So they don't forward ballots, but they do forward letters. So what we do is we track the ones that come back undeliverable, and then we send them a letter. We send them to notify that their ballot came back undeliverable, and they have the opportunity to contact our office and correct whatever discrepancy there is with their address where they have the opportunity to vote. And then signature verification. I mentioned that's one of the things that our bipartisan teams of judges do. The back of the envelope is where the voter signs, and these judges, they review all of those, they review those signatures to all of the signatures that we have on file. So the eligible elector, the name has to match, the unique voter ID has to match, the barcode on the return envelope, and it has to match all the signatures on file. That's the only way that it gets accepted. Other than that, it gets rejected. We notify the voter. They have the opportunity to cure their signature if it is not accepted, and to verify whether that was their ballot, whether that was their signature or not. And if they don't contact us within a certain time frame to cure that signature, we notify the district attorney's office. The signatures that are rejected, that was what I was talking about, was we notify the elector to be able to either validate or confirm that that was their signature. Sometimes we have someone broke their finger, or they we even have situations where they've changed their signature just to make it a little bit fancier and it's not going to match. The judges reject it. The ones that are accepted, the signatures that are accepted, those ballot envelopes have not even been opened yet. So no one knows how that person, that voter has voted. So those ballot envelopes that the signatures were accepted, those go to the next process. Different teams of bipartisan judges, and those process the envelopes. And then from there, they process the ballots. From there, it goes to adjudication, and that's the bipartisan teams of judges that determine the voter intent when there is a question. For example, if the voter changed their mind a lot of times and scratched out and said, no, not this one, that's where those teams of judges come in and determine what is the voter's intent for that vote. And then at the end of every day and at the end of every election, we balance everything. We balance active eligible electors, the number of ballots that are received, the number of ballots that are rejected, accepted, returned back undeliverable. We balance every ballot, every point throughout, every day throughout, so we can absolutely confirm and that there's no ballot missing. There's no one that didn't get sent one that was supposed to get sent one. And we have teams of bipartisan judges that are involved in that also help us verify those numbers. I talked about the
Tressa, 2-minute warning. No,
okay.
2-minute warning.
I talked about the number of tests and audits that are conducted. We conduct throughout all the counties in Colorado. We conduct a number of tests. Before the election, we test the equipment and the software's ability to interpret voter intent. That's called the logic and accuracy test. We have risk limiting audit tests that are afterwards. And then we have a cast vote record audit. And that is where you can probably see this just a little bit. We have an imprinter on our scanner, and it imprints the tracking number of every ballot in the system that goes in. So on that cast vote record, we can look at that large spreadsheet and we can identify the voters, the machine's interpretation of that ballot, and we can pull the ballot. We know exactly that it matches because of that imprinted number, and we can verify, yes, that one was interpreted correctly. and it was conducted appropriately. And then I mentioned the canvas board. That's where the bipartisan teams of judges, as well as the political parties, come in and they audit our work and they verify that we match and that everything from the abstract of votes that are cast, that everything balances all the way from beginning to end. And then I talked about the record retention, that we collect and retain everything, every ballot, every machine ballot, every mail ballot, every signature, every envelope, everything that there is, as well as the 24/7 video surveillance. We maintain those, and at some point, 25 months later, we shred those with very strict shredded guidelines that that we're required to follow also.
Okay.
That's the highlight of everything. There's a ton of details involved in every process, but that's the highlight of it all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to remind people, since we got some people join us later, we're saving the questions and answers to the end, and we'll be doing that by chat. Thank you so much, Tressa. And now Michelle Nauer will be talking to us about voter responsibilities and voter registration information. And
hi, everybody. I'm Michelle from Ouray County, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I've seen an incredible amount of change throughout the almost 28 years that I've served as clerk, even going back farther to hand counting and handwriting all the lists and typing lists and stuff. So it's been really an interesting journey for me. I'm going to talk a little bit about voter registration. Voter registration is actually really simple in Colorado. GoVoteColorado.com or GoVoteColorado.gov. Both those will work to get you to a website where you can register a new voter registration, change your address, change your party affiliation, change anything you want, even cancel your voter registration. So Teresa alluded to the program SCORE. That's where we track the voter registration information. Right now, we do have a new automatic voter registration. We call it the AVR program, where when somebody goes to the driver's license office and gives, let's say they're from out of state and they're getting a Colorado driver's license, they can register to vote automatically. They don't even need to initiate it. It's an automatic voter registration. And that information electronically comes through to SCORE, and that person is automatically registered. We send a letter to that person and say, if you wish to declare a party affiliation or change something, that you can do it, but it is an automatic process. Now, if you're not new to Colorado and you already have a voter registration and you wish to change your address or your party affiliation or anything, you can do it either electronically or by paper. So if you do it electronically at the govotecolorado.gov website, you just need to have your, I believe it's your driver's license. You put in your name and your address and your driver's license information, and it will bring up your record, and you can update your record at that point. That's the electronic version of it. You can also do it by filling out a piece of paper. Here's a voter registration form. The voter registration itself has your name and your address, and usually your driver's license number and the last four of your social security and your birth date. We use all that key information to know that it is exactly you when we are getting you registered to vote, and that there's no duplicate person out there, because everybody has a unique last four of their social and their birthday. So that's how we keep track of people. I want to talk a little bit about addresses. The SCORE program actually allows for 3 different addresses. The address where you live is the street address that needs to be put in there. There's no mailing, no PO boxes are allowed for a street address. And then your mailing address may be the same as your street address, or it may be a post office box. Here in Ouray, we have a lot of post office box addresses. Then in third address is where do you want your ballot mailed? And this is really key for the snowbirds, especially in the Colorado counties around here. We have a lot of snowbirds. So the address where to mail your ballot is often what needs to be changed depending on the election. Sometimes our snowbirds are back here in Colorado when we have the primary election, which is the latter part of June, but yet they leave town once snow hits, which is usually mid-October. So I'm always telling my voters, go in and update your ballot mailing address. You don't need to change anything else, just your ballot mailing address so that you can get your ballot wherever you're at. And I suggest doing that about 60 days prior to the actual election. So the election is the latter part of June. I believe it's June 28th. So by May, so this year with the upcoming primary that's coming soon, coming fast, then if you update it 60 days in advance, that would be approximately May 1st. And because the counties, once we get our ballot content and we're actually building the ballot, we also in that process extract the voter lists so that the vendors that process the ballots, that actually print and stuff the ballots, they have the right, most current address. Now you can go in and update your address all the way up to the day of, practically the day of election. Sorry about that. I'm at home because I'm having a snow day. That's my puppy. Anyway, so update your mailing address and check that every election so that you know where your ballot's going to be mailed to. Also, political party affiliations. If you want to know what that is, go check your voter registration record. There are actually 7 parties in Colorado. There's the American Constitution, the Approval Voting, the Democratic, the Green, the Libertarian, Republican, and Unity Party. Unaffiliated is not a party. But if you don't wish to belong to one of those parties, you can remain unaffiliated. You can also pick which ballot in a primary, whether or not you want a Democratic or a Republican ballot to be mailed to you. Otherwise, if you do not do that, by default, you will get two ballots. So I think that's it as far as the voter registration. Keep in mind when you register to vote through govotecolorado.com electronically, it's the signature that you made at the driver's license office is a signature that gets attached to your record. If it's a paper form like this, it's the signature at the bottom of this form that gets scanned in to your record. So as Tressa alluded to, when you return your ballot and the signature verification process occurs, sometimes we have a history. If there's multiple paper registrations, we have that history. So you can, sorry, my puppy is distracting me. So you can get a signature compare. Sometimes the driver's license office, the pad that you sign your name on is a little difficult to read, but that is what we have to use for your signature verification. I always suggest to everybody when they register to vote, you need to register to vote exactly as what's on your driver's license and do your signature exactly what's on your driver's license. Because people call me up and say, what does my signature look like? And I'll say, look at your driver's license. Please use the signature. because sometimes people have different kinds of signatures or they abbreviate their names somehow differently. So it's really important. The signature is very important. And if you need to update that signature, sometimes, you know, people's signatures get shaky or something. We're happy to help somebody take care of that, to update their signatures. Again, for all those snowbirds that are out there, update your record to make certain your ballot's going to the right address at least 2 months before the election. That really is helpful for us. So anyway, that's it. I'll wait to see if you have any questions later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's wonderful information. Okay, and now Terry Stevenson will, the clerk from Delta County, will talk about redistricting and the precinct changes that have resulted from that. So take it away, Terry. Okay, you are muted. We can't hear you at this point.
I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this panel discussion. Sorry, there's a little feedback. And getting this information out. I'm going to start with, according to CRS 30-10-306, parens 4, which requires the boards of county commissioners after each federal census to establish, revise, or alter commissioner districts. So basically what we have to do is make sure that all the commissioner districts are equal in population as much as possible. There should not be more than a 5% deviation between the most popular district and the least popular district. Also, the part of redistricting, you have to look at making sure that you're keeping your communities whole, which is your municipalities. It would take a lot to divide a municipality. We like to try to keep them as whole as possible. We also must keep them as compact as possible. After the commission approves a plan, the staff is then required to have the ability to have the public be able to review those changes. In Delta County's case, we have the GIS department has done layers and they are available online to review. In our county, we had less than 30 changes to our voters. They will be receiving or have received changes in their district. We should have them by statute done by caucus. We also generally have to have these done by September 30th. However, House Bill 1047 would effectively delay until September 30th, 2023 to reapportion commission districts. We happen to have ours done, but there are some counties that are delaying their, as long as the commission has complied with the requirements made by CRS 30-10-306, parens 4, the commission may consider congressional districts, state house representative districts, and state senate districts in order to minimize the necessary voting precincts in a county. I can go into a little bit more about, under Colorado law, precincts are based on active voter counts rather than raw population. And that's according to CRS 1-5-101, parens 2, establishes different maximum active voter counts per precinct, depending on whether the county uses paper ballot that are hand counted or electronic voting systems. In such cases, we use a tabulation system so we can establish at least one precinct for every 1,500 active voters or up to 2,000 active voters per precinct with the approval of the Board of County Commissioners. All counties will be required to adjust precinct boundaries after the Supreme Court approves the final congressional and legislative redistricting plans. And that's all done before the 2022 caucus. So that's already been done. Here in Delta County, we did increase some precinct populations because we were getting close to the 1,500. At this time, our county happens to be up at the Supreme Court and waiting to hear a decision from them. Beyond that, we are done. We have done as much as we can. I believe that I can go into a little bit of the independent redistricting, but that's all already been done. That's pretty much all I have. And again, I'd like to thank all the participants today and those that are listening. And if you have any questions, we'll be here to answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So now we have ample opportunity for questions. People can submit their questions via chat. We have two people monitoring the questions, and they will, if you submit a question and it's directed to a particular county clerk, please identify who you want to ask the question of. And I guess we are ready for any questions. Susan or Carolyn, do you have questions?
Well, I'd like to start with a follow-up about the ballots sent to unaffiliated voters. If they receive 2 ballots and vote both of them, what happens then?
When you receive 2 ballots, they're supposed to return only 1. If there are 2 in the envelope, then we disqualify both the ballots.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, it's very important to make certain that voters know that. And there are instructions to return just 1 ballot. Clearly there are instructions to do that.
Thank you. And could you tell us in each of your counties, how many drop boxes do you have and where are those?
I'll go first. My drop boxes, I have one that's sort of catty corner from the courthouse. And then I have a second drop box that is at the 4-H Event Center in Ridgeway. And I have a third drop box down at Kelowna, right next to where the mailboxes are in Kelowna. So it's pretty handy. I think I can capture most everybody that goes in and out of the county with those 3 different places.
Montrose County has 2 drop boxes. One is over at our NUCLA office on the west end, and the other one is right in front of the old courthouse in the city of Montrose. I'll tag into Delta those voters, active eligible voters who get a mail ballot and want to drop it off in the drop box in Hotchkiss. Terry, as the clerk for Delta, she works with us and receives those ballots on behalf of us and then delivers those overnight to us. So we are able to also take advantage of the drop box that's in Hotchkiss, which is Delta County.
Delta County has one at the main courthouse at 5th and Palmer. We have one in Hotchkiss at the North Fork Annex. We have one up in Paonia at the Town Hall. We have one at the Cedar Ridge Public Library, and we will have one at the Orchard City Town Hall. So
I'd like to add one other thing about the drop boxes. if a ballot is dropped in a drop box in another county, anywhere in the state, it doesn't matter if it's, an agreement with the local county clerk or the neighboring county clerks, it's entirely across the state. The county that it receives the ballot will overnight those ballots to the county where the voter resides. So for example, if it's dropped at UNC over in Greeley or somewhere over there, somebody's going to college over there, they can get their ballot and then they can drop it over there, and it is timely received, and we ultimately will count it post-election.
Wonderful, thank you. Can you tell us what makes an active voter become inactive? And then a follow-up to that, how does an inactive voter get restored to active status?
Yeah, I kind of meant to touch on that and I didn't get a chance to really do that. A voter gets converted to an inactive status when mail is returned. So if their ballot is returned undeliverable, they are pushed to an inactive status. That doesn't mean they're not eligible to vote. It just means they're inactive because we can't get the ballot mailed to them. So all they have to do is go to govotecolorado.gov and update their mailing address, and that will reactivate their record. So again, that's really important. If you miss election because you were out of town or your mail was temporarily, well, maybe not even temporarily going somewhere else, you can reactivate yourself easily. That's why I encourage everybody to check their voter registration before every election.
And how many elections can you miss before you were purged?
That is 2 general elections. So for example, if the last time you voted was in 2018, and then in 2020 you had moved away and we somehow weren't ever notified of that, and the ballot came back as undeliverable, you would be pushed to an inactive status. And then if you failed to vote in 2022, you would be purged after missing the 2 general elections. So we call it list maintenance, and Tressa alluded to that. There are different methods of getting folks, if somebody passes away, we get notification for that. If somebody moves out of state, sometimes the ERIC reports will show that. However, sometimes people's voter records stay on there unless they actually go on to Go Vote Colorado and cancel their voter registration. Sometimes the voter rolls look like they're inflated, and because everybody knows their neighbors and they know whether or not they've moved, but there's been no activity on their voter record, their name just stays there. We cannot change a record, modify a record of any kind without the voter initiation of it.
Right. Good to know. Could you talk to us about your county election websites? Do you update those regularly with the 2022 election information? And if so, when might voters be able to access that information?
Montrose County, we do maintain our website to current. And as far as 2022, we will post the important dates for the June primary, which is June 28th. So we'll post when our logic and accuracy test will be scheduled and invite the public. We'll post the various important dates when we mail the ballots, when we mail UACAVA, obviously election day. And then after the election, we will post quickly, that election night, we will post the unofficial vote tally. And then as we go through the cure process, the 8-day cure, and go through canvas, then we'll post the final votes.
Right, is that the same for Ouray and Delta counties?
It pretty much is. We try to get those important dates out there as well. We also do links to Secretary of State's for any information that they would like to have there. So we try to get as much information out there as we can.
Same in Ouray. You know, we do have links to the Secretary of State's office and election night reporting and all of that. So
Thank you. What about information about party caucuses? Is that information shared with the clerks, and is that something that would go on your website?
Montrose County, we have not posted that information on our website at all. The way that now the party is required to notify the Secretary of State's office as well as our office for informational purposes when they plan to have their caucus, the location, the date, the time, as well as their assembly. And then when we get people who contact us and want that information, we share it at that point. And then our other relationship with the party is that we provide them a statutory requirement is we provide them the list of people, the voters who are eligible to vote, well, of the voters active and inactive who are affiliated with their party. We do provide that list also.
yeah,
Delta County is
I
the
agree.
same.
You know, the caucuses are pretty much handled by the parties, and our only real obligation is to supply those lists that Tressa just alluded to. So yeah, and I assume that the state parties assist the local parties in managing their caucuses.
Thank you.
I would like to point out something right quick that has come up very recently. We've gotten several phone calls and contacts, questions from the various parties' precinct chairs and wanting to know why certain people aren't on those lists. The clerk's offices don't provide any confidential voter information to the parties. That strictly comes from the state Secretary of State's office to the state party, and then the state party disseminates it out to the various counties. So if you know of a particular law enforcement person who lives in your neighborhood, or someone who has chosen to be a confidential voter, they will not show up on those lists that we provide to the parties.
So that's good to know. Thank you. So I have a follow-up about the drop boxes. What are it's kind of a multi-part thing, you know, what kind of rules surround the drop box? How often are they emptied? What kind of security do you have for them?
Well, I'll go first. My cameras are turned on for when the drop boxes are officially opened, and we also accept other kinds of tax payments and such. So we do try to keep them open year round, but the security cameras are on when we're actually in election mode. And in Ouray County, they are checked once daily up until a couple of days before the election, like the Monday before election, we'll check them twice. And on election day, we tend to check them 3 times. So my judges will go out, bipartisan team of judges will go out and take the ballots out and clean them out.
Delta County is similar. We check them maybe not daily, but at least 3 times a week leading up to election. 3 to 4 days prior to an election, we're checking them every day. The Monday before and on election day, we do check them several times a day, up to 3 times.
And in Montrose County, we also check ours daily. And then as it gets closer to election day, specifically the Monday before, we'll check it a number of times throughout the day. And on election day, it depends on the type of election. The general election, presidential, we were checking it every 2 hours because we knew that we were getting a lot of voter turnout. Whereas a different election that would be less voter turnout, we would check it as needed at least 4 times a day leading up to, and then we check it at 7 p.m. when the polls close, and then lock the mouthpiece of the ballot boxes to where no one can submit their ballots after that 7 p.m. deadline.
Okay, and do you have to put your own ballot in the drop box, or can someone drop it off for you?
There's a statutory requirement that provides an individual to collect up to 10 ballots to deliver those to the clerk's office, no more than that. And as far as anyone's welcome to mail their ballot, to drop it in a drop box, to hand deliver it. We have a substantial drop box in our office, also at the front of our voter service polling centers. So anyone can hand deliver their own. An individual can give their ballot to another individual to have it delivered, but we strongly suggest that you know who that person is and that you trust that person, that they will deliver it, and that they won't lose it, that they won't misplace it, and that they absolutely will deliver it. So we prefer each individual to submit their own, but we also know that there's homebound individuals and other situations that prohibit people from being able to hand deliver their own. They can always drop it in a mail. Yeah, drop it in the mail and mail it to us. But we strongly encourage that they know who they are handing their ballot to.
Okay. We have a question, which is, how do candidates and parties get access to our call numbers so they can text us donation requests?
I don't understand the question, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, candidates and political parties obviously know who is registered for each party because they call us and ask us for money. So where are those lists obtained? Do they get them from the clerk, or is there another source?
Lists are public information, and candidates can come in and request a list.
Sometimes I've even had organizations, not organizations, but a private sector company call and just say, "Can I get a candidate list?" They do that, or they call and they want voter registration lists. Now there's a fee for all that, but it's whatever's on the voter registration. Again, it's the voter's responsibility to keep their voter registration current. If they don't wish to have their phone number, they don't have to give their phone number nor their email. So I don't know where some of these people are getting their information. I have no clue.
All right. I have a question about mailing your ballot. If people don't put sufficient postage on, or the stamp falls off or something, will you still accept the ballot?
Absolutely. And the post office knows to charge our account for it. So yes, we absolutely accept it. It's delivered to us and we cover the cost of it.
Yes, and I want to reiterate, it's the same here. My post office knows whether or not there's a stamp on it to get it delivered to me, and I will pay the postage. However, so it doesn't become a budget issue for clerks, because that could be a nightmare. If everybody just dropped their ballots in the mail without postage, that could be a budgetary nightmare. So please use the drop boxes. But do know that we will pick up your ballot from the post office without a stamp.
Okay, thank you. Someone would like to know if mentally handicapped people can register to vote and if that affects how the ballot is counted.
I believe everybody has a right to vote. If they need assistance, we have people available to assist, and it will be counted just like any other vote.
Okay. With regard to poll watchers, have there been changes to Colorado's poll watcher statutes? And do you think that there is a possibility of increased harassment at polling places?
Well, that's two different questions entirely. Poll watchers are usually appointed by a political party or a political committee, or even a candidate. Those are the people that can sit and actually watch what's happening at the polls. And they are supposed to go through some training when they do that. As far as the harassment at the polls, if somebody just walks up and does not have their watcher training certification paperwork, then they cannot just come in and watch the process. They have to be appointed to be an official watcher. So I would look at that person and just say, hey, you're welcome to, sit out on the street and do whatever you want away from the polls, but you cannot actually come in and watch. And are we going to be harassed? I don't know. It's a pretty scary world we're living in right now.
So
keep in mind, we do have lots of security, or at least I do in Ouray. I have cameras outside of my voter service polling center, inside my voter service polling center. So there is security, and I may even go so far as to have an actual security guard around if we sense that there's going to be some sort of harassment of any kind. So we're prepared for that. But a watcher, an actual poll watcher, is much different than somebody just coming to the polls and demanding to see something.
okay.
Also, our election judges and our staff are trained to recognize if there is a situation, or if they're notified of a situation, they know to immediately address that, to whether they can, it depends on the level of harassment, they can go and address it themselves, or if we need to contact law enforcement, or the next step of whatever the event needs to how it needs to be handled.
Thank you. So I have the next to the last question, and that is, can 17-year-olds vote in the primary if they will be 18 by the time the general election comes around?
The answer currently is no. There was a time period when the law changed that did allow 17-year-olds to vote in primaries if they were going to be 18 years or older by the following general election. But recently the law changed back, and that is no longer available to 17-year-olds. Now, again, like I said earlier, 16 and 17-year-olds can register to vote, but that does not mean they're eligible to vote.
Okay, thank you. So I have a comment for you, and then one last question for each of you. And the comment from one of our watchers is that I so appreciate the participation of all three of our county clerks. I hope the voters of these counties appreciate how committed, hardworking, and professional they and their staff are. We are so lucky to have them do the quality of work that they do. So thank you. And then if we could just wrap it up with, if you could give us a statement, what's the most rewarding and the most challenging aspects of your position?
Well, the most rewarding for me is to be able to serve my community, the constituents of our county. The most challenging right now is definitely elections and the concerns that people have. We want this as part of educating them as to the process, so they can feel confident in the results that we have. I think we have a really good system here in Colorado. I think our clerks do a great job, and their staff is also committed. My staff is very loyal and want a good result that the community can be assured that it was done correctly.
I'll have to say basically the same thing. My most reward is to be able to effectively lead the staff to conduct their role in what they're required to do in their job. The biggest challenge tagging along with what Terry did is that Colorado, as well as individual counties, are compared to other states. And that's why I wanted to really stress the process that Colorado has in place and the key components that we have, because other states that implemented a mail ballot, they may not have all of those steps in place. That's why it's so important. We are constantly educating people not to compare us to other states, because every state manages their, whether it be a mail ballot or their election process, completely different. And that's probably been the greatest challenge since 2020.
I just love working in the clerk's office and have done it obviously for a long time. And I love the diversity that the clerk's office has. And elections is a big component of the clerk's office. And elections is much more front and center now, particularly since 2020. So the challenge that I experience is, again, kind of Tressa and Terry both alluded to it, is the misinformation that goes on out there. I invite anybody to come in and visit the Voter Service Polling Center and listen to what we have to say, walk in our shoes for a little bit. And that is the challenge, particularly over historically for me, is to see the tension that has arisen out of elections. Elections are secure. I will tell anybody, please come and visit and talk, get educated, learn exactly what we do in Colorado. And one of my favorite sayings in everything is there's 50 United States, but we don't do everything exactly the same way. And I believe Colorado has a really great election method with our mail balloting and our voter service polling centers. And we have lots and lots of security to oversee everything. So I'm really proud of what has happened over the last, 20 years or more. But the challenge right now is the educational component for the voters of Colorado.
Well, with that, unfortunately, our time is up. We have learned a lot of really important information. I want to remind everybody, we did record the program. We will have it up on our website by the end of the week. That's lwv-uv.org. I will also be sharing the video of this with the counties so that they can make it available through their websites. Thank you so much to our panel. We are so fortunate to have these ladies overseeing our elections locally. Thank you very much for taking time out of your extremely busy schedules. I'm going to share one more screen with everybody that has a lot of information. These are many of the websites that our clerks mentioned. The govotecolorado.gov is the Secretary of State website. There are other websites here. for each of the different county clerks' offices. The League of Women Voters nationally, not just locally, pulls together information on ballot issues and candidates in the vote411.org. Anybody in the United States can go to this website, type in their address, and get information on candidates, ballots, and other voting information. And then this is our League of Women Voters website, lwv-uv.org. So that concludes our program this afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.